Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Plot Genie. Let's jump into our topic for the day. First of all, do you love this shirt with Aizawa? I don't know if there's any My Hero Academia fans. I love him. He's my favorite, but All Might's my favorite. Anyway, I'm not going to get into an anime tangent right now. Let's jump into it. Let's talk about it. Did you know that turning one single book into a series can double, triple, sometimes even 10 times your sales without writing brand new ideas every single time? That's right. Just one book, multiple books, more sales. And today I am going to walk you through how to turn your book into a standalone story, or sorry, how to turn your standalone book into a bingeable series without burning out or starting from scratch or losing your mind in the plotting process. So, we're going to talk strategy, we're going to talk tropes, and we're going to talk reader psychology because this is how you sell more with less effort. And these are all of my favorite things to talk about, besides Aizawa, of course. So, anyway, let's jump in. Sorry if I'm a little excited, but first, let's talk about why series even matters. Like, why are we talking about this? Standalone books are great, but series books they build momentum, okay? Readers don't want one-hit wonders. They want familiar worlds, ongoing character growth, and emotional investment that pays off, even if your books in this series are standalones themselves. And for you, you don't have to constantly chase new readers. Each book markets the next. And this is one of my strategies that I love, is just writing the next book. You get more lifetime value per reader, if that makes sense. So basically what I'm talking about is a well-planned series is going to equal more loyal fans, more page reads, more buy-throughs if you're not in KU, and more royalties, all from this one core idea. And I will talk about my own experience so you can kind of get an idea of how I do this too. So, how do you turn one book into an entire series? So, first, you have to start by identifying your expandable core. And so, what do I mean by this? It's essentially your hook, your world, your structure that has series potential. And that's the really important part, is it has to have series potential. A lot of the time we'll see thrillers and they're amazing and they're wonderful, but it's kind of like, does this have series potential? Sometimes yes, for sure, but sometimes no. You kind of want to leave on an ambiguous sort of ending where you really don't know what's going on with the characters, and it leaves you to sort of guess or sort of imagine, right? Whereas with romance, with mystery, with even science fiction to a degree, fantasy, all of that stuff, you can create these series from these standalone books, right? So, some questions to ask yourself: can I turn this cast into a friend group series, possibly? Does the setting lend itself to multiple series? Is there a larger conflict that can unfold over time? And could I shift point of views to explore other characters? So, for example, let's say that you wrote a Grumpy Sunshine small town romance. Turn it into a series by giving each book to a new character: the best friend, the brother, the ex, the rival shop owner. Same world, same tone, new couples. Readers are already in. And this is something that people don't really talk about, but should also be part of that package, is same length, same number of chapters. You don't want to have like one book that's 80,000 words and then book two is 50,000 words, right? You want to try to aim for that same structure. So not only are your readers going back into your world and experiencing your characters, they also get that same sort of structure, which again, it's almost like safety. They know what to expect, they know what they're getting, and they know how long it's going to take for them to kind of get that, if you understand what I'm saying. So once you have those things lined up, choose the right series structure, right? There are three main types. The first one, connected standalones. These tend to do really well in specific genres like cozy mysteries or romance, especially. Each book follows a new couple but shares a world, characters, or theme. I do this for my hockey series, right? Small town series do this. Readers can jump in anywhere, but they still want to read them all. So, for example, each book is a trope forward romance featuring one of five hockey players on the same team. What? Who's done that before? The second type of series is a dynamic series. I think Sarah Cannon calls it this, as well as a linear series. So one main plot arc unfolds across several books. Think fantasy, dystopian, potentially dark romance, but I've seen a lot of dark romance either be duologies. Rarely are they going to be more than that. Potentially mafia, right? But this requires a little bit more planning, but the payoff is massive. And so, for example, a forbidden romance that starts in book one and builds through betrayal, heartbreak, and redemption over three books. So yeah. And then finally, episodic or procedural. So think cozy mysteries again, or monster of the week, urban fantasies, things like that. Each book has a contained plot, but there's a bigger story unfolding into the background. And as someone who's written so many cozy mysteries as well, when I talk to my readers, the thing is, like, my characters don't stay flat. And I think a lot of people get this wrong when they're talking about, oh, it's episodic, so the characters don't grow and change. It's like, no, if you're doing it the right way, your characters are growing with each book. Now, can they read the external plot and it's self-contained in one book? Absolutely, for the most part. There might be some subtle background, arc. So, for example, in my Cherry Blossom Bay series, one of the main arcs that probably won't get resolved until book 12 is my hero, my love interest, sort of like his major wound is this case that went unsolved. And so his two best friends were murdered. The police chief was murdered by the serial killer, as just he's known as the badge hunter, right? And even though that is part of his wound that he carries in every book, and this is why that he refuses to get close to anyone, even though my amateur sleuth is just like, I see how grumpy you are. I don't care. It's not going to scare me. They've had multiple instances where they could have been a couple, but he keeps her at arm's length because he's so worried that the badge hunter is going to come back and get her. And but this isn't going to resolve itself from book 12. Having said that, my main, like my amateur sleuth, my character, Piper, she's going to grow across the series. Like when she starts book one, she's kind of heartbroken. She went through a breakup with a douchebag, She's not going to be pining over that douchebag. I mean, especially after hanging out with Kenji, well, okay, but that's besides the point. But I'm trying to say is like every single book, she kind of has, I don't know if this is going to be like a good comparison, but like if you are married or you're in a relationship, think about it. It's like a minor little spat with your significant other, right? You kind of have this I don't want to call it a flaw, but it's like something you have to work on. And so you kind of open the book with this little flaw, and it could be she's being stubborn about something. It could be she's getting into trouble that she shouldn't be getting. She's investigating when she shouldn't be. She's arguing with her mother. She has to work with her aunt at the police station. Her mother invites her to Christmas, even though, like we start the story off with some kind of thing that needs work, right? And so, like, across the series, you're going to see her go through these issues, but they're not going to be the same issues every single book because she's growing. Anyway, that was my tangent. I see this a lot with like people talking about like cozy mysteries, and I'm just like, no, 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 the characters do grow over time. Like, come on now. So in terms of like my readers and stuff, I try to tell them like, hey, if you can start from book one because you're going to be much more satisfied with watching Piper go from book one to where she is now. Like she's the same character, she's the same like whatever, sassy, sunshiny character, but you kind of, the little moments that she has, whether it's character growth, those realizations, or even the moments she has with Kenji, like they feel a lot more earned. But if you're just there to solve a mystery, that's fine. Do whatever you want. But anyway, so those are the three types of series. So you want to use those structures that support your story and your writing stamina. So that's really important is the writing stamina because we all have different writing staminas. Anyway, okay. Certain tropes scream series potential. Let's just be honest. We all know it. Sometimes we roll our eyes at it, but it's the truth. Whether we want to hear it or not, it's the truth. Having said that, please use them to your advantage and do it right. Certain tropes are just fun. So here are some of my favorites. Like, first of all, okay, no judgment, right? Age gap. Mentor, mentee, or professor, student, that type of thing. Forbidden romance. I love power dynamics. I love imbalanced power dynamics. Arranged marriage, which kind of goes into a more broad forced proximity. So it's like arranged marriage or, like fake dating's fun. Grumpy Sunshine is my chef's kiss. That or enemies to lovers. Like those are the two that I absolutely love. I love it. Okay. Um, anyway, those are character tropes, I should say. So So those are character tropes. But in terms of series potential for like structural tropes, because I have this trope course, I'll link it below. It's very inexpensive, but there's a difference. I mean, I haven't seen it taught this way, but there's a difference between Grumpy Sunshine and hockey romance. And you would think, oh, hockey romance is a genre. Well, yeah, but it's also kind of a trope, like the hockey player. What does that mean? Well, if we're doing a hockey player, he's probably going to be alpha and he's probably going to want his girl to wear his jersey, right? Like that's a trope. That's part of those expectations that we want to see. So anyway, so for the structure tropes that really lends itself to series potential, friend groups, obviously, found family, sports team, bandmates, roommates, whatever. I do sports team, obviously. Another thing is siblings, brothers and sisters with connected emotional wounds. You see this a lot in Mafia. You also see this a lot in Romantasy if they're doing the standalone because you could potentially have like, princes or whatever. Workplace settings. So, like a group of doctors or a group of lawyers or firefighters or witches in a coven or assassins, you name it. And then this is another, oh my gosh, I love this trope, this structural trope so much. I use it all the time. It's magical schools or training facilities. New missions, new threats, same core cast. I just love the professor student. Anyway, so here's a tip. Introduce future heroes or heroines early on. And this is what I did for my hockey series. My college hockey series is I will let you in on a secret and I hope you can indulge me. I'm not trying to be self-indulgent, but here we go. I introduced a character named Damien in book 1 of the series. And readers constantly asked me about him because I knew they would love him. I made him over the top. I made him an asshole. I made him feral. I made him obsessive, everything. But I made them wait for him until book 11. Can you imagine? That's like almost a year and a half. But every time I released a new book, he would always pop up, even if it was in a couple of chapters with a couple of lines. And people always, always, always asked for his book. So you can kind of do this by, you might be like, Heather, 12 books. I cannot commit to that. That's fine. Find a length that feels good for you, that you will commit to, regardless of whether or not it makes you any money. I'm not going to get into a tangent about that. Maybe we'll have another tangent day, a different time. If 4 books feels good, if 5 books feels good, figure out what your tropes are for each 5 books because then you can flesh out your characters and that way you can kind of introduce them in a more organic way, starting in book 1 without taking away from book 1. That's another little pro tip. Okay. Um, don't wait though until book four to realize you forgot someone's eye color. I am a huge, 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 I do this. I do this a lot. This is why I've cast my characters, whether, Aizawa shows up in book two of this hockey series or Johnny Depp is the star of my pirate series. At least I know what they look like if I have cast them. But if that's not your thing, make sure you start a series Bible even before you start writing. This way you can track your character names, ages, arcs, relationships, rivalries, world building details, timelines, major events, and even the tropes that you use uh, because you might want to repeat them, but you might not want to. It just depends on what kind of themes you're going for the book, and if you can take a trope and make it completely different while still serving that trope. You can use Google Doc, Notion, Trello, whatever works. I like Novel Crafter because it's just really cool. But this saves hours and hours and hours of time, and it keeps your series tight and bingeable. Okay, now let's get into the juicy part. So, how do you make your readers want the next book? I will tell you. So, first, you want to end with emotional satisfaction, but you want to tease on an unresolved thread. So, how can we do this? What I have done is I have planted for the series that just finished. So, for the Crestwood hockey series, I always had, for the most part, sometimes books just smacked me upside the head and said, you don't know me, but you're writing my story. I've always tried to at least include, if I know in advance who the next character is going to be, that character in book, one or whatever. So, for example, book eight is when our coach finally gets a book, but he has been in the series the entire series. Again, maybe only in a couple of chapters, but he's been in the series. Um, and also like I knew that in book four we were going to get a professor student dynamic, so I introduced that in book one, where my book one heroine's best friend is the heroine of book four, and we already saw her bantering with the professor in an enemies to lovers way in book one in a class that they shared. So again, it's that organic thing. And so you kind of want to plot, like I did this really well for the first six books. Then book seven just smacked me upside the head and said, "Oh, did you know that Damien has an older brother? Well, hello, write my story." I was like, "Excuse me," but then I wrote the story and it was amazing. Um, I'm trying to think because I really want to make sure. Book 12 came out of nowhere. I didn't tease any of those characters. They just fell into my lap. I was like, "Okay, I guess you're here." But everybody else was teased at some point earlier on. So it's not like if they had read, from the book one, they were going to get introduced to these characters, with the exception being book seven and book 12 for sure. Okay. You second, number two, right? Include a preview chapter of book two at the end of book one. What I'm doing right now in my spinoff series, which is the Detroit Serpents hockey series, is I am creating maybe like 1,000 words, 1,500 words of like a little teaser of what the conflict is going to be in the next book. So, for example, in book one, the story really focuses on the two characters, but a very small subplot is the acquisition of this character, and we kind of understand the tropes and why, the team would want this character. So for my epilogue, the dynamics of book two was going to be this player is going to walk in to be sort of like a mental, like not mental, gosh, sports therapist. Like, okay, we need to make sure everyone is healthy and blah 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 blah, like mentally. And they know each other. And not only that, but he is messing around with her older sister. And so it's like this dynamic. But you kind of see that a little bit in that epilogue of, okay, it's only 1,000 words. We're going to end with a big kind of conflict of like, she clearly wants nothing to do with him. He's teasing her about it because Jared just likes to push buttons. Um, and the same thing is I did that for book three. My book three tropes are, it's like boyfriend's rival, and it's like a bet, right? And so we kind of see the rivalry at the end of book two in this 1000, like 1200 word epilogue of and the heroine is right there in the middle of it, essentially, like, like she's just doing what she, like, basically. So we're teasing at what tropes are going to be there, and as well as what the core conflict is going to be. And it's only 1,000 words. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do. And it's already kind of worked. Like, I already have my characters a little bit, but people are already asking for certain types of books. Like, so I think I'm doing okay. I think I'm doing a good job. Anyway, number three, build relationships between side characters. So we want to root for their future happily ever after. So I've already kind of talked about this, where you're introducing the characters early on. And this is why I think it's really important to understand what your tropes are going to be, because you can hint at those tropes. Like, because I knew that my character was like a professor student enemies to lovers, I knew exactly how they were going to interact in book one. And I did it in a way that was organic. It wasn't like book four's heroine is trying to steal the spotlight from book one. It's like, no, they're in a class. He asked a question and he's clearly picking on her. And it's maybe 3 paragraphs and that's it. But I'm already setting up the dynamic, right? The same thing for book one's older brother. Like, we can see, like, in book one, they're at this sort of like orientation, like, party. And, you know, book one book one's heroine is trying to like hide from her brother, so she's keeping her eyes on him, and she sees that he is confronting his arranged marriage fiance, because guess what, she's dancing with a guy. Even though he wants nothing to do with his fiance, he is not going to let her dance with another dude. And again, that took 1 paragraph, and it makes sense within the context of the story, because she wants to keep her eyes on her brother because she can't be caught by him, because she's definitely not supposed to be at this party. And so I've already introduced his sort of like trope. It's going to be arranged marriage. It's definitely going to be enemies to lovers. He's going to be this possessive asshole, right? So that's kind of what you can do in order to set up your series. And finally, you can offer a bonus scene, a free novella, or a reader magnet that bridges the books. That's also good. I do that. And yeah, so that definitely helps, especially getting subscribers. Remember, your goal is to keep them in your world. You don't want to let them like peace out after reading. Make it irresistible to keep going. There was something else I really wanted to bring up. Think about also spin-off potential. So the way that I did it, because I mentioned, the Detroit Serpents is a spin-off of the Crestwood series. Crestwood is a college series. So obviously some of these guys might end up on the NHL team. And I can kind of transition it, because guess what? In book one, we learned that book one's Eris, the heroine, inherits this NHL team. So again, it kind of makes sense. You can do it with family, you can do all of that. And that way you can populate this world in a bunch of different ways. Okay, I remembered what I want to say. Well, Heather, like, what if I wrote a standalone without planning all of this? That's fine. Here's what you do. Let's say you already have your book one and you were like, okay, I really want to make this into a series. So what I want you to do is do everything that I just talked about. Go watch the video again if you need to, but pretend this is your book one. What tropes have you already used? What is your setting? Are there any characters that you can add like really quick? Like, look at my examples. You only need 300 words. You only need a paragraph. You don't need anything. Could her best friend be be a character, like a heroine? Could his brother be a hero? Could the ex that's an asshole get a redemptive arc? Like, all of these things. That's what I want you to look for. And then once you have that, sort of tease things out. Like, how many books do you want to invest in? And I don't just mean money, I mean your time. I mean, you are going to commit to your readers that you are doing at least 4 books in this Mafia series, right? So it is possible. You just have to like make do. And you're like, okay, well, I wrote this rom-com and I don't, but that's great. Rom-coms can work. Your main heroine, could have a sister. Write a line about her texting her sister before she goes on a date, or texting her best friend about some awful date that, she had. The best friend doesn't even have to respond, but the fact that she's there, you can sort of utilize. And now that you have this information, you can do a little bit better job in that series. Another thing that you might want to consider is taking the book that you just wrote, and I know this is going to be hard for some people to hear, and just making it your reader magnet. You don't have to necessarily have those same ties in your reader magnet, because you're essentially giving it away for free in terms of like in order to get subscribers. And then start planning your series with that book one, and make sure that your characters from that initial book one or that standalone are peppered into this, and we can see the relationship, and we might be like, oh yeah, like how did they get together, right? I did this for a reporter. So my epilogues in the Crestwood series are just like interviews with the heroes, right? And obviously the heroines are with them. But my reporter, I was like, you know what? I want to give her a happily ever after. And it's only 10,000 words. And so she gets her own happily ever after in this reader magnet. And even though she is a consistent character, not necessarily within the context of the actual story, but she's always there in the epilogue because she's writing an article about whatever happened, right? So anyway, I hope this was helpful to you. So if you've written just one book, you are halfway to a series, essentially, and a stronger author business. So remember, like, let's just recap really quick. What we want to do is find that expandable core. So what is your hook? How can you expand this? Choose the right series structure for you, your brand, and the story itself. Use tropes and character tropes, as well as structure tropes that fuel that binge reading. Build your world with intention and keep readers emotionally hooked. If this helped, I would really, really appreciate it if you could hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, what do you want to turn, or what book do you want to turn into a series? So let's brainstorm together. I love helping you grow the world that you've already created. Until next time, keep plotting with purpose and turn that one book into a bingeable income generating series that your readers are craving. I will see you in the next video. All right, everybody, take care.